you can blatantly rip off an idea. There's no sort of consequences for it. I think it stinks. It doesn't sit right with me. Some of these bigger brands that are charging top dollar for products that are still made in Asia, I think they need to make them more affordable to the masses. So I hadn't actually planned on filming today, but I saw a video a couple of days ago that Andy from Backpacking UK had uploaded, where he's shown a tent that he'd just got from China, and it's a fake Xmid, a total knockoff of the very popular ultralight tent that's out at the moment. So there's something about the tent shown in Andy's video that just doesn't sit right with me. I thought we could have a bit of a conversation about it. I haven't brought any filming gear with me, it's just my phone and the odd little bits and bobs that I keep in my pocket just in case. It's a little bit windy today. We've got Storm Debbie at the moment. So I just want to take you back to my first ever video. So it was me, you don't even see me on camera actually, talking about an Emberlit stove, which is a cracking bit of kit. And all of Emberlit stoves are designed and manufactured in the USA. I'm not sure if they were the first to make that kind of stove, but they certainly won't be the last, as their design was copied by a lot of Chinese firms who banged out cheap versions for the masses, for people like you and me to buy. I remember reading an article at the time where the bloke at Emberlit was struggling a bit because he's just a one-man band, started off making stoves in his garage, came up with an ingenious design, and then was priced out of the market by all of these Chinese firms that were shipping stuff out for under a tenner. I think the Emberlit at the time was around £30. So you can see why the cheaper versions were attractive to people. So that was my first introduction really to cheap Chinese knockoffs, when it came to camping gear anyway. So the Chinese have been copying stuff for God knows how long now. So skip forward a few years, and one of my biggest videos was me using the Nature Hike Cloud Peak 2, which is, it's not an exact knockoff, but there's some very stark similarities to the Hilleberg Alac tents, although if you put both tents side by side they are very, very different. But Nature Hike were giving us a product around £125 at the time, which was affordable, and the tent was perfectly adequate for most situations. There's loads of other examples of Chinese knockoffs, from the Trangia burner to MSR and Big Agnes tents. I've even got a Trekology chair, which is a knockoff of the Helinox version. And these products are made with cheaper materials, cheaper labour, but they do give everyday people the opportunity to buy stuff at an affordable price. So a lot of this camping gear that you can buy from AliExpress or Alibaba, people dismiss it as cheap, tacky, from inferior factories, which from what I've seen is the case in a lot of times. You're definitely getting inferior quality materials. But I'm not always so sure about the factories. A lot of the big branded gear is also made in China or in Asia. So this Outdoor Research jacket, it's around a couple £100 I think, and that is made in Vietnam. So the average salary in Vietnam is actually less than it is in China. And the Patagonia top that I've got on, £100 I think it is, that is made in Sri Lanka, I believe it is. My Rab coat is made in Indonesia. So I'm going to put it out there that some of these bigger brands as well are exploiting the cheaper manufacturing and labour costs for their products. Granted, the materials that they use are better quality, and there is some sort of, what's the word, due diligence when it comes to working conditions and things like that. I'm not going to name names, but there are big brands in the past that have been caught out for using factories where the conditions aren't necessarily the best. But overall, I think you do get what you pay for. So where the Durston Xmid tents are made, for example, they've been making tents in that factory for over 30 years now. Big brands such as MSR, they also have their tents made there. I believe it's in Vietnam, I'm not exactly sure. But some of these really cheap Alibaba tents One week they might be making tents, the next week they might be making shopping bags. So it's not like they're a specialist manufacturer when it comes to that equipment. So you're much more likely to have defects or quality issues. So this video isn't about whether you choose to buy some of the cheaper products from China. You know, the chances are, even if you're buying some of the more expensive gear, it is manufactured somewhere in Asia. So I just really wanted to clarify some of the differences that you're getting between buying a fake X-Mid and the real McCoy. So the proper Durston X-Mid has been designed by someone who is a real enthusiast, a proper backpacker that has put thousands of miles in with a variety of different tents, and he knows what works in a product. So Dan came up with something very innovative when it came to the design of this tent, which he actually patented it in the US. So nobody else in the US can copy his design or idea. So it's basically that the inner runs at an angle to the outer. So they are parallel, but it's more like a parallelogram, shall we say. And this gives the best use of materials, the best use of space in the tent, best headroom. It also gives you a geometry on the tent where you only need to peg it out with 4 pegs and you've got a really strong structure. So he's also chosen to use a sil poly material which is less absorbent to water. So sil nylon, it tends to absorb water and then it sags, so you lose some of the structure in your tent. Also means it's better for multi-day trips where you're not, lugging around a load of water that you've absorbed from your fly sheet. Now the knockoff version isn't using that material, it is using sil nylon, and not all sil nylon is the same. I will drop a link in the description below to a Nortent video where they are showing the tear strengths of different nylons. Some of the really cheap stuff, it just tears like paper, as I can testify from using a Chinese made tarp in my last video. So I've seen videos where tents made with some of these cheaper nylons, where people have just pegged it out and it's just literally split down the middle. I know of somebody that just tripped over his guy line and it ripped the side of his tent off. That being said, in a lot of conditions you can get away with a cheaper product and it's going to be perfectly fine. And I know that everybody's got different budgets and you can't always afford to buy the real thing, so it does make these cheaper alternatives a real viable option. But you do have to see these cheaper ones as a throwaway item, because if anything goes wrong with it, when it comes to warranty, if you're trying to get it replaced from China, most of the time anyway, you're pretty much screwed. Trying to send a return over there or even get a reply sometimes is near on impossible. But if you're going out camping once, twice a year, then I don't recommend spending top dollar on a tent anyway. At the end of the day, it's your money, you do what you like with it. But onto the main thing that got under my skin with seeing this tent on Andy's video. So Andy got quite a lot of stick from the X-Mid lovers, and bashing the Chinese copies and things like that. But all Andy was doing was showing you an option, and that's kind of his job nowadays. The problem for me is how in China you can blatantly rip off an idea. There's no sort of consequences for it. If it's over here in the UK, if in this video now I was to put in a little bit of Michael Jackson music, I'd have a copyright claim against me, because we have a thing called intellectual property over here and they have no respect whatsoever for that in China, from what I can see. So Dan Durston is a one-man band. He was on his own, possibly with his wife, packing tents, shipping them out individually, handwritten notes, all of this kind of thing, working from his garage, potentially put his house on the line and mortgaged up to the hill, trying to run a successful business based on a dream that he had. He came up with a real innovative design that we hadn't really seen before, and just when he started reaping the rewards from it, somebody with no innovation, no real backpacking experience, just blatantly copies his design, rips him off and starts selling them out at not a fraction of the price. By the time you get it over here, it's maybe going to be £100 cheaper, something like that, but all the same, £100 is a lot of money these days. But for that £100 less, you're getting an inferior product. And Dan must be pulling his hair out because there's literally nothing he can do about it. And I think it stinks. It doesn't sit right with me that, you know, you can come up with something innovative, unique, a great design, and then put it out to market, invest your heart, soul and all of your life savings into it, for then some company just to rip you off. It just doesn't sit right. The problem is people like you and me buy these things sometimes. We see something, we think we're saving a few quid, we're thinking it looks like the real McCoy, we think it will suit our needs, and it might suit your needs, but we go out and buy that and it's devaluing the real thing. Anyway, I would love to know your thoughts on this subject. I'd love to know what you think about Chinese products, whether you've used them before. I've used them before, some of them are fine actually. You know, the Trekology chair, for example, is a little bit heavier than the Helinox one, but it's a decent chair, but it's a rip-off. Anyway, rant over, back to normal service tomorrow. I'm out camping with Sandy, aka the Wiltshire Man, so I hope you look forward to that video, and I'll see you then.